Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Prog Takes, where we debate the hot topics of today. We got sort of maybe it's a topic, maybe it's a rant. I'm not really sure where this lies, but it's something that I think is interesting to discuss. And joining us again is Geoff and Kyle. How you guys doing?
Good. We even wore the same clothes this
We even
Yeah.
wore the
as
same
last
clothes.
time.
What are the
Isn't that
chances?
amazing?
Go figure. So the topic I'm bringing up today is that I don't believe this, but it's something that is sort of discussed. You hear this in the news from different people. Maybe somebody has seen Gene Simmons sort of bring this up, or different channels that only cover older bands or old prog fans that don't want to hear about any new music, all that kind of stuff. That there are no good new rock bands anymore, and of course the Prog Report itself was launched on the premise of too many of these channels only cover old bands. We want to cover all the good new music that's out there, and I'd like to think we've done a good job to some degree. But okay, so I want to start. Let's start with you, Geoff. I mean, where do you lie in this? I think the three of us, in this particular case, we're all in agreement. There is a lot of good new music. We're arguing maybe that not enough people are recognizing that. That's what I'm trying to present.
Yeah. So I think my take on it. I mean, I'm older than you guys. I'm of a certain age, and I think probably when you get to a certain age and stage, music works on lots of levels. Maybe you lose some of the hunger to hear new things because there's so much stuff that you already like that you know a band really needs to kind of stand out for you to you know play it rather than play something amazing that you've liked for 40 years. Right, so the bar gets higher, but I think if your mind is closed to anything that's new, and you're just going, I just want to listen to my old stuff, then you are definitely missing out on stuff. You are definitely missing out on things. And I know, there have been things that some of you guys have, talked to me about, and I've kind of gone, oh, I've got enough. I don't need to hear anything more. Like I can remember, and I know they're not a brand new band, but I guess the one that sticks with me was Moon Safari's last album, um,
Himmerlachen.
Himmerlachen
Himmelbacken
2,
Volume
wasn't it?
2. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is.
And it was like, oh really, some European prog band, a volume 2. Oh my goodness, and Roie did his as Roie like, guys, please just give it a chance.
Just give it a try.
The problem is he's the boy who cries wolf, because he says that about so many things that even
Everything.
that is just no. Here he goes. Put it on and went, oh my goodness. 3 months later, we're talking about albums of the year, and it's like all of our favorite albums. All of our favorite album of that year. So I think I definitely don't think there are no good rock bands around anymore. I think you know, there is so much more music. It is much harder to navigate. Anyone with GarageBand, and with minimal technical ability can upload stuff on the streaming. I don't know the numbers, but there's massive amounts of music. It's really hard to navigate. It's really hard to wade through. But I know that there's also websites, including this one, where, you know, if people say, this is something you should listen to. I mean, Spock's Beard is one of my favorite bands. How I got into Spock's Beard was in the days of there was a mail order catalog. These guys who sent out this catalog, and I think I read a review in it that said, "Oh, Beware of Darkness." I've said this before. Beware of Darkness. Spock's Beard. The first track sounds like a long lost outtake from yes, Fragile, which it kind of does if you listen to the first minute and a half and the bass and the drums, and then after that goes into something that's completely different. But that was a hook that in those days was I had to spend money to get that. Now you can hear stuff for free and check it out. Um, but I would say that my tolerance for wading through a full album that I'm not necessarily enjoying for the off is very very limited.
Yeah, Kyle, how about you?
Well, I agree and I disagree. I think if the point is there are no good new mainstream rock bands anymore, I might be more inclined to agree with that. And I guess I would say like the machine or the platform of popular music is has sort of ground to a stop. And if you ask like ChatGPT, like what are the big rock bands today, like who they throw out there, I'm like, yeah, I'm not really into those bands. Like, I don't know. I mean, I can kind of live without, the bands that sent out were like The Warning, Greta Van Fleet, Dirty Honey, Wonder Horse, Royal Blood. And I've heard some from those guys, and there's some good stuff there. But also, like, admittedly, maybe I'm the problem because I've not listened to them a lot. I mean, I've listened to like a handful of those albums, but it's not like I see it as important. Whereas, like in other media, like let's say movies, I still keep up with all that and try to watch new movies and go on the weekends to see stuff. And yeah, there's good new films being made. I mean, maybe there are fewer, and maybe like that's a whole nother argument is that what the film industry perpetuates is largely like superheroes. It's sequels, it's remakes, it's nothing is new IP. And so maybe the music industry is just a more extreme version of that, where it's they don't lift up the new IP, they're going to lift up whatever they think will sell. Um, Although a band you love, 21 Pilots just sold a ton of albums. So
They
and
did.
they're terrible. So it's
Okay, well, we can debate that on another Prog take. They're not a
yeah.
prog band. I'll probably get mocked on this channel for
Yeah.
liking
And
them, but I
they're
do
not a
like
No.
good
them.
rock band either. So
I think they're very good, and they did sell about 200,000 copies. It's
It's
pretty wild.
crazy.
So,
Yeah, good for them.
um, good for them. I think there's two arguments, like you said, to be made. I mean, one is popular music has moved away from rock music. That is so almost inarguable at this point. I mean, the last popular rock band. I mean, do you
It's
count
like
Coldplay?
Foo
Like
Fighters,
Foo
Coldplay.
Fighters, Coldplay, Dave
well,
Matthews, they're all 30 years old. Like, I mean,
yeah.
that's. So new, I don't even know who the new one. Ghost is maybe the closest. Sleep Token,
Sleep
but I'll
Token.
argue Sleep Token is not rock music. I don't understand what even that is. Maybe that's a Prog Take
Got
episode.
some bands in the early
What is Sleep
2000s.
Token? Um,
Yeah, Blink
so
182.
Who is Sleep Token? Like?
no
Who
one knows, but
who
but
are?
that
I
aside,
don't. I've
I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue that there aren't any popular rock bands. We don't live in the popular music world. We're in our own space, right?
No.
But I think you have a lot of people out there that fly the banner for example, music, YouTube channels and radio and things like that. That I feel like they're not helping the case a little bit. For example, like a Rick Beato channel, who I think he's great. No one does it. No one does YouTube channels better. He's awesome, and I watch his channel all the time. But he does little to promote any new bands. I mean, he'll cover Steely Dan and and the Police and Toto and whoever the hell else. But I guess those get views. But I mean, he also does episodes where he plays the top 10 worst songs on Spotify. Again, I think at this point, anything he puts on YouTube will get a million views. So why not do why not present a band like Leprous or Haken or some of those bands that some people in his audience might like. I think that's a lost opportunity that it sort of pushes the case of like there's no good new music, right?
But
Another one is Stephen.
let me just add this really quickly about Rick Beato. Like, I think people now are patterned to not want to like things. I think they want to hate things. And this is maybe like a whole nother like argument, but I think it's true. Like, I think people react to like the 10 songs I love the most that came out last year. The 10 worst
I
songs
don't
last
know.
year.
I don't know. And
Yeah,
again, I'm not.
that's what.
I'm not.
click.
I'm not. I don't. He may know better about his algorithm, all those other things that I don't. We don't understand. But I think if he did an episode of like covering some of the bands that we cover here, or even the new Dream Theater or something, that I can't see that being a bad thing. It's one episode out of the 30 he does in a month or whatever. But in
Come
any
on,
case,
Rick.
Come on, Rick.
also you have Steven Wilson who got a radio show on SiriusXM, and congrats to him. We've been wanting something about Prague on SiriusXM forever, and it's great. And he actually makes a lot of sense to do it. He's super knowledgeable. He's done 2 episodes. They're 2 hours each. He's really great at introducing the songs, real historian, talks wonderfully. But all the songs he plays, again, are late 60s through 70s, 80s, with maybe one song from the 90s. Like he played a song from IQ on one episode. So again, a lost opportunity to play something new. And he may, because he's in his 50s, like many of us, or many fans of prog that are even older, also just doesn't care to worry about new bands, right? So
What if it's
I
just
don't know.
that
I
he
think
thinks
there's
the
lost
Prog Report,
opportunities.
he just thinks the Prog Report have it covered. You know, he's
Yeah,
like, oh well, I'll let them do that.
But then I
yeah,
think if you got an opportunity to do something like that, you would play stuff that you're really into, right? Or I think most of us have a desire that, if you're a music fan, you want other people to hear, we like saying, "Hey, listen to this," and the person comes back and says, "Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's amazing. I'd never heard about that." That applies to me. That applies equally to new music as it does to old music. And I think it was one of the things I was going to say is, if you're not happy with what is going on currently, you know, there's probably lots of good stuff in the past that you missed if you actually go looking in the right places and, go digging. People get a lot of joy from, I've had a lot of joy from finding, older bands that I'd never heard of before, and suddenly finding there's an entire, I mean, Styx is it's it's an example for me. I probably didn't actually ever hear Styx until maybe 7 or 8, maybe 10 years ago. And suddenly there's an entire career and a catalog, and you get to dig into that. And to be able to do that stuff that you probably did as a teenager, even now, there's so much music around that you can do that. So, yeah, if you don't like the new stuff, then look backwards.
we did this thing. We do this thing every August called Progust. Everybody that follows, it's on usually on our social media page, but it started with the idea of like that. We came up, at least maybe Kyle and I more than you, Geoff, a little bit, with like the Dream Theater era preceding a lot of the prog music, right? Um, but then it sort of was like, okay, I was looking back and I go, have I ever really listened to the first Jethro Tull album? Things like that started to go. Like, I know of Jethro Tull, I know the big albums, I know a lot of the, but have I even ever heard it? And you start to realize, no, maybe there's albums in there that like I never even listened to because it's just so past. So like you said, you go back and you discover some of these things. There is that element, but we're talking about this,
Yeah.
new music. There's a lot of great new music that we always try and promote. I know it's impossible for people to have their ears into the new music like we do because we get sent it all. We get the press releases, we follow, we know what's new, and then I also present it to you guys when you're not able to keep up. And it's certain a lot of people just don't have the time. That's why I think it's important for the gatekeepers that get a bigger audience, that have bigger channels on YouTube and on radio and things like that, to help and promote some of this new music, because there's a lot of great stuff out there, a lot of great stuff. That even if you heard one new song would be something, you know what I mean? So
Honestly,
I hope.
it's I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's depressing that there's not more of a platform from new rock bands. Prog Report and prog music, that sort of thing, like that's a whole nother side argument that we're aware of because it's a niche and we care about it. But I'm still fixated on the idea of just music as a sort of universal thing where, the film industry's got its problems, like, but the video game industry, like, new games come out and those games get championed and people play them. I'm thinking of like every other medium that's out there for entertainment. TV, yeah, I mean, it's gone to streaming, but it still thrives and there's still good TV being made. Like the music industry, is it just that music is so relatively easy to produce that it just doesn't carry novelty, or I guess it just doesn't produce commerce. So that's why it just doesn't get elevated. But I have to think that there's great music being made. Certainly there's a potential for that, but there's no elevation or platforming of it.
Do you think that, if you think of what I'm sort of freestyling a bit here, but if you think of how did, a lot of popular music came about because it wasn't just about the music, It was about the look, it was about the clothes, it was about the rebellion, it was about new technology, it was about, breaking boundaries. I think we're at a
Right.
place now where unless you want to go to, and probably this is a Stephen Wilson type argument, he would probably say, well, there's people who are still doing all of that, but if you want to find that world, rock's the wrong place to look. It's
I
electronica
think that's
or it's
fair.
sampling or it's what, and I think there is part of it that is there's so much has been done that
Mm.
back to my earlier example, why did I buy a Spock's Beard album? Because someone I read it sounded like yes, and I think there's a lot of good stuff that you go, oh, well, you like that because it sounds like Porcupine Tree or because it sounds like
Mhm.
Yeah.
whatever.
I think something sounding brand new and not like something before is just such a pointless argument at this point in our
Yeah, good
evolution.
songs,
It's.
good songs,
I
and
mean,
good music.
we're not fans of necessarily the current pop stuff like Sabrina Carpenter and all these people that you see all the time on TV, but you hear some of the stuff around and it all just sounds like the same 80s pop garbage that we grew up listening to. It's just rehashing of that. I mean, nothing is completely new. So it is of its time, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and everything's influenced from something. So I don't know that it needs to be, oh, that sounds like, okay, so it does. Why,
Yeah,
Maybe there will be a return to that form, maybe like where rock music becomes more relevant. I mean, it's been 16 years since a Super Bowl halftime show was a rock band. I saw that today.
Yeah.
16 years. That's insane.
It's not in the
Uh,
main consciousness anymore. That is unfortunately true. But all the biggest tours are a lot of them are rock bands. That's for sure. You
that
know.
is true, but they're all legacy acts with
Yeah.
with members that weren't in the original band. Journey, Neil Sean's the only one.
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. And also, we talked about Gene Simmons in the beginning, but and he's been quoted in the press all the time saying that rock is dead. There's no more good rock bands. I don't necessarily fault somebody like Gene Simmons for thinking that. I mean, he grew up in a time when it was the main thing. He discovered Van Halen, for God's sakes. He was in the biggest band in the world. Like, is he watching a podcast to discover the new track from Leprous? Of course he isn't. He has
Should
way
be.
more important things to be doing.
come on,
So,
Gene.
but that doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just not being fed to him on Channel 4 News, you know what I mean? Or there's no
Yeah,
MTV, so it's not easily to find. But there are good bands. You can find them here. That's my argument.
yeah.
But
You bet. There's what
but only
we've got a
here.
member of one of them on this podcast.
Oh, please. Please, please. No, I mean
Um,
it is depressing, like the venture of making new music and trying to get it out and get people to listen to it and care about it. Because there is some element, and you mentioned this, Jeff, you kind of got at it. It's the look, it's the moment, it's in a lot of different times, it's what is the music sort of speaking out against in the culture? What does it counter to? Um, how do you do that anymore? Like how do you make it? How do you elevate it to this point of importance? And that's marketing on some level. Like how do you market it such that it's positioned uniquely? I don't
well,
know.
Yeah,
it's a whole different game. Bands have to play the social media game now. They have to play the streaming game. They have to make videos. They have to do all these things. You cannot just make a great album and then hope people find it. That's at least for sure. Even then, with all the other work, it's all the challenges of it being heard and getting people to listen to among the million things that are presented them every minute on their phones and,
Uh,
and
and
whatnot.
and I
So
think the other thing is that streaming has also broken. Not broken. I think there's a you can now be an active band who never play live.
Hmm.
You can now be an active band who never tour. You can now be an active band who don't produce any physical media whatsoever. It has just changed so much. Um, and I suppose that means that it's less about even what is a band. And I think probably this is maybe one of the things that I take, some of the stuff from this, which is, well, actually, a capable single person can produce a record that sounds like something that, 30 years ago would have taken 10 people to do, needed a producer, needed studio time, needed funding, needed backing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, in some respect, it's both.
All right. Well, I think we've covered this topic. A lot of good points. What are some of the bands that you think people should discover? Are there good bands out there? Let us know your thoughts and comments below. And of course, check out the other Prog Takes episodes and everything else going on the channel. And we will see you all again next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on all our socials and progreport.com. And we'll see you all again real soon. Thanks.